Hello. Welcome to the live stream. We kind of hastily threw this together, so we'll see if, anybody shows up and all the technology works. Are folks here? If you're here, put the location, like your country or continent or city or general region into the chat, and then we'll be able to see it on the map, which is very exciting. Um, yeah, I had a plan, and the plan was to discuss. Hello, at least one human is here. Uh, as opposed to just me by myself with a donut, and then that's just like a weird. I'm alone eating a donut in front of a camera and broadcasting on the internet, which is somehow more awkward than if people are willingly tuning in to see that. I don't know where I'm going with this. I am wasn't like feeling great today. I've been tired all week, which I mean I've actually been tired since like March and was not like super excited about live streaming today, but now that I see humans popping up and here, I'm actually feeling maybe a little more excited about it. I had to do a lot of work to get the donut today. Yay! I like how Joe just always says Australia, and then you're put in the part of Australia that no one lives in. Uh, so the donut today, as most of you know, I live pretty much on top of a donut shop, and it's where I get these donuts from, and they generally, like with the pandemic, it's been like for a long time, it was like you could only order on the app and then you like had to go do a no contact pickup. But now they're doing no more than two people in the store and everybody has to be distanced like 6 feet away from each other. And they have little markings for lines and we can see it from our window. Like we can see the line. The line was non-stop today. I don't know if like protesting just got, it's lots of people here. It's so great. Or just lots of people typing in new and interesting places into the chat to have it pop up and like actually you're in three places at once. Hello. Glad to see you. Can I see the chat again on the screen? Yay. Hello folks. So anyway, the story about this is that they no longer will let you like order off the apps if you're just doing pickup. And they are taking like cash again, which I think we've determined that cash is not actually like the main vector that everybody needs to be concerned about. So I think that's okay. And I never really liked it because they charged you like a small fee to use your card even though they were only taking cards, because most people don't only buy a single donut. Apparently I'm the exception in that case. Anyway, the line was stretched around the block all morning. And to be fair, that doesn't mean like it's a totally long line because there's 6 feet between everyone. But I think partially because it's a donut shop with a lot of choices, people take forever inside the donut shop. And I actually went down twice and I waited in line the second time for a little bit. The first time I came down and I went, oh my God, there's no way I'm not waiting in that line. I'll just wait till it dies down. Like I can see if there's a line from my window. I went down the second time. I was like, you can just chill out in the line for a while. Didn't really want to talk to anybody. But I kind of figured, wear my mask, don't engage, and you just like chill in the line. And then after waiting for like 5 minutes and the line had like moved one step, I was like, nope. Finally, I saw there was no line, but there were two people inside and it still took 10 minutes. So, I don't see why people take forever in donut shops. Get one of everything done. I mean, for one, these are not the cheapest donuts in the world, so one of everything would be like a dozen donuts from there is like $30 or something. So it's, yeah, that's the main reason. I've had this donut on the live stream before, so if you come regularly, you might have already seen it. It's the one it's sour peach, and it tastes pretty much like really good Sour Patch Kids. And their flavors, they're switching to new seasonal flavors at the end of the month. So I wanted to get another live stream in with this. I just wanted another one of these donuts. And I pretty much only get the donuts on live stream days. So Latitude says, $30 for a dozen vegan donuts. I mean, it's not that good of a deal. It's so they are not $5 each. They vary in price. So they're between like $2.50 each and like $3.75 depending on like the one with like the straw coming out of the top costs more than like this donut. And like more than the fritters and stuff like that. I think presentation heavily affects the cost. But the one of my favorite ones that's actually not one of their seasonal ones, it's called the Portland Fog because it's like Earl Grey, but then like Earl Grey cream, but then like coffee donut. It's my absolute favorite, and it's year round, so I don't have the panic like this one that it's gonna go away. But it's pretty expensive, I think, because everything's fair trade in it. It's like fair trade vanilla and everything, and fair trade coffee, so it's more expensive. Still exponentially cheaper and tastier than if I try to make vegan donuts. I don't actually think the ingredients for I think the margins on donuts are actually quite good. The problem is that if I made donuts, my kitchen would be a mess, and then I would eat every donut, and I wouldn't have any price control in constraint, right? Like, if the marginal cost for each donut is low, I will eat them all, and I don't need to eat all of those donuts. I wish, Pager, Keba, I wish I could send you the Earl Grey donut. It's very good. It's probably my favorite. I'll eat it on a live stream again. I don't know if that's in any way helpful. It's probably more frustrating to watch someone eat it. The new seasonal flavors come out, and I don't know if I've made merch that is a calendar. Is next Saturday. Oh, next Saturday is, in fact, yeah. So next Saturday is August, and I think all the new seasonal flavors start August, or maybe they start August 3rd. So the new seasonal flavors look good. They do this really agonizingly mean thing, which is that they roll them all out on their Instagram for several months leading up to, like, for like weeks at least, where they'll like take really delicious pictures of all the new seasonal flavors before you can actually get them, which I find very frustrating, but it does build some excitement. There is one seasonal flavor I have not tried, and I will not be trying on a live stream, probably, that's called Black Forest, and I'm sure other people would be very excited about it. But it's a chocolate, like, cherry donut, and I don't like chocolate, really. Like, I will suffer through some chocolate, but I do not want to eat an entire chocolate donut. So my reaction would not be an accurate review of the donut for people that enjoy chocolate. So, Latitude says there's a vegan bakery nearby, but they don't do donuts, only very good cookies and brownies. I will say, like, donuts is a really challenging thing for any bakery to do on top of, like, regular baking. In one of my many former lives, I was a vegan baker, and I worked actually at a bakery that was a wood-fired bakery, which is this whole nother level of complication. But we didn't do donuts just because anything where you are doing deep fried stuff in large quantities is just like a whole nother batch process and safety thing that you need to do. And there's all these like complications if you're doing fried donuts, which are the best donuts in my opinion. So, yeah. So they're not like $5 a piece, but I think occasionally there is like a donut that's like $4.75. And we live in Portland, so there's no sales tax. So, the price on the donut is the real price, except that you need to tip. But Joe says, you should send that cherry chocolate donut here. I will review, but in 3 months' time. Yeah, that's the real issue, is that like international shipping is taking even longer than normal. Also, because I am coming out with my first food product under the Oh My Dollar brand, I did a bunch of investigation and about what I can and can't import. And I could technically send that donut to Australia, but I don't think it would do anybody very good. So, yeah. No, Kristen asked if they ship. No, they don't ship. They're very purist about their donuts. They don't even sell day olds because they don't want people to judge their donuts a day late. But if you go right before half an hour before they close, except on weekends, you can get buy one get one free, and like that was gone for the pandemic for a while, but so that's the best you can do. But I Oh My Dollar sponsors the thing that I get donuts for, which typically happens every month. Unfortunately, does not happen every month right now because it is giving people free food on a bridge for riding their bike to work. None of those things apply right now, so we're not doing it at the moment, which is really sad because I've been volunteering for it for like 13 years now. And but anyway, Oh My Dollar sponsors to get the donuts, and then as a business I can write it off as a marketing expense, and like I'm listed as a sponsor on the thing that I volunteer for. So that's my strategy. I mean, so you all know, that's the whole reason I review donuts on the live stream is so that this is a tax write-off for me. So Latitude says, I just thought of a great end of semester gift for myself, which is custom ordering a cake for just me. That sounds great, but I will say custom ordered cakes are really expensive. That's been my experience. Also, apparently, like, Costco has stopped doing the sheet cakes that everybody knows them for, like the custom sheet cakes. I don't know what's up with that, but it was one of those things where I saw an article, like, pass me by, and I was like, oh, interesting. That is, I mean, it's not school spending, but sure. I'm actually attending a meeting that I'm really, speaking of tax write-offs, I'm attending a meeting I'm pretty excited about tomorrow, which is that a local exotic dancers union formed here. And they'd like been around for a while, but they started doing a bunch of organizing and protesting and actually like dressing up in their dancer clothes and heels and doing protests for Black Lives Matter and like against discriminatory hiring practices. Especially because none of them can work right now because adult entertainment businesses are totally shut down. And almost all dancers, if you don't know, are self-employed. I have a lecture about that called The Economics of Stripping that you might be able to find. I have a peer-reviewed paper on it as well. So, and anyway, they asked me for help with kind of training dancers on some finance things, and also they've been getting a lot of money donated. So adult entertainment is one of the categories of businesses that did not qualify for payroll protection loan. Explicitly, you had to state that no adult entertainment occurred in order to even like get the loan. So the businesses that like, as much as it's easy to put any businesses that operate like bars that happen to include people taking off their clothes for money in this sort of category of, oh, they're not important to the economy. Like those are real people's jobs and businesses. And in Portland, they're actually like a not insignificant part of the restaurant industry in town. And so there were like various places that were doing creative solutions. One of the strip clubs in town figured out how to do drive-through strip clubs where you like pay per car and you bring your friends and then they'll like dance and you have to order a pizza in your car. I don't know. It was very confusing, but yes, Latitude, it can go in that category as long as that's your own category and not a tax category. Please don't try to like write it off as an educational related expense on your taxes. Amanda says, yeah, I'm mad at myself. I never thought to get cake as end of semester present. That's a great idea. I wish I could dig it. It's up there, but I printed a special label for myself for a bottle of whiskey that was my thesis whiskey. And I kept it sealed the entire academic year leading up. And it wasn't like, it was for me on my student budget expensive whiskey, but it was probably like a $35 bottle of whiskey. So not like, this wasn't anything crazy. But I covered the label with like thesis whiskey and I had the date of my thesis deadline on it. And then, of course, I turned in my thesis at like 8 a.m. several days before the actual thesis deadline, which meant that I cracked open whiskey at like 8 a.m. and I still had to like go to work and stuff that day. But luckily I worked on campus and they had all knew that I had turned in my thesis. Did you just find a picture of my thesis whiskey? You did. Yes. I feel like I wrote some puns on the bottle. 4 years library aged. What does it say? Straight bourbon must be finished by May 3rd, 2013. Yeah. I have the bottle. I don't even drink anymore. And obviously it's empty. It was very quickly consumed by other people on the day that thesis was due. I can't see chat anymore. I think cake is better than whiskey though, frankly. There was quite a long-suffering culture at my school. I also think that there was a lot of free food on campus during thesis week, and I don't know if I would have been that motivated to get free. Yeah, I don't know if I would have been that motivated about cake. Like, there's just cake. Yes, I think getting a cake for yourself. Your wedding cake was only $60, Joe? And that's 60 Australian dollars, which is like 50 US. That's, oh my gosh. That seems cheap to me, but maybe it wasn't like totally custom. I don't know. Cakes are very expensive in my experience. But maybe it's because my mental idea of like how much food that should feed. Like, I'm like, this is only this big. At the same time, when I watch Great British Bake Off and I realize how much work it is to make those cakes, my mental willingness to pay for that expertise goes up. We've discussed this. Food is not the thing I prefer to spend my money on. I said I would discuss some financy things, but... Oh, you spent $200 on cupcakes. I see. So it wasn't for like everybody at the wedding. One of the cooler weddings I went to was friends of mine that their honeymoon was biking across the United States. And they did like the United States as the cake. Like it was like that. But then all of the islands for the United States, like Alaska and Hawaii, were the gluten-free and the vegan options. So I think Hawaii Islands were vegan and Alaska was gluten-free or something. It was really delightful. So I think the economics of cakes is financy. Yeah, I could give a little update on what's going on with the unemployment bill and how it's a giant mess. NPR just came out with an exclusive report on the very exclusive report that essentially revealed that all of the states said that the U.S. government took too long to decide what's happening with the extra $600 a week, which, as you may know, this is the last week that anybody is going to be getting that extra $600 a week on top of their unemployment check. And there are 30 million Americans receiving that extra $600 a week right now. And it's pretty much single-handedly like paying rent and holding up sectors of the economy. Meanwhile, a bunch of cities and the CARES Act ban on eviction for non-payment is up next week. And so a lot of places, a lot of jurisdictions have been allowing landlords to go through with the eviction process, but the actual physical eviction can't take place until after the CARES Act expires. So essentially the US is about to collapse. And the state unemployment department said, even if you do pass something new next week, if it's not the exact same thing we've been doing right now, it's going to take between 8 and 20 weeks to implement it, which by that point, we're all going to be screwed. So that was my finance talk, but I see we're still on cakes in the chat. So clearly I should just talk about cakes. Yes, the US is about to collapse. Let's talk about cakes. And then maybe I'll eat this donut. Wedding party ate the cake after the party ended and it was perfection. Nice. So it was just like a cake to show that there was a cake. Did you do like the cake cutting rituals? I don't know. I'm not very good at... I've been to a lot of weddings, but I'm not very good at wedding-y stuff. I've mostly been to gay weddings. weeks before it's implemented. So here's the thing. Yeah, like, essentially if they extend it and they try to change it. So what's happening right now, I kind of talked about this last week. So if you're confused, and it's going to come out of the podcast this week because I'm rehashing it. What's happening is the Democrats essentially said we should extend the extra $600 a week. And as you may remember, the extra $600 a week on top of the unemployment payment was like extremely rough. Like, they didn't really have a plan, and they were sort of like, sure, this is the amount that will fix it. It had some basis in reality that it would likely 100% replace like the average person receiving unemployment that makes the median wage. But the thing is that like every state's minimum and maximum payments and unemployment system is slightly different, and what people make is different. And the result of that was, one, there's quite a few states where that $600 a week is the only unemployment benefit people are receiving, because if they don't fit in the traditional category of receiving unemployment, a lot of states are making it so they're only getting the pandemic unemployment assistance, which is the name for that extra $600 a week. Not every state has implemented it this way, but 1099 workers, W-2 workers, a lot of them are getting $0 from regular unemployment, but they're getting $600 a week from pandemic unemployment assistance, which expires on July 31st, which could technically be earlier because different states send out unemployment on different days of the week. So it's like, and in some states they do it based on your last number of your social security number or your birthday. And then in some states, it's always Tuesday. Everyone gets it Tuesday. So it completely varies by state. Reminder, we have 53 different jurisdictions we have to deal with here. So the Democrats were like, this $600 a week was like kind of roughly thrown together. And the Republicans, and not to totally generalize, because there's some people that cross, but generally the Republicans are very like, they do not want to back an extension of it because they are worried that it is not an incentive to work. Because if you were making minimum wage and you're making an extra $600 a week, right now you are almost guaranteed making more on unemployment than you were making before. And a lot of households have been getting like significantly more money for quite a while. The problem is that unemployment in a lot of these states, the minimum is not enough to live on. So sure, making more than you were before. I mean, I'm not going to begrudge someone making $2,400 a month, like, and like trying to feed their family during a pandemic. I never was begrudging them, but Republicans really don't like the idea that there's jobs out there and there's not poor people working them and instead just collecting money from the government, in their view. And they don't want to extend it because they don't want anybody to be making more money from unemployment than they would be making from going to work. And there are jobs open right now that certain industries are having trouble filling. And that's largely because the risk premium is too high on those jobs. So if people are afraid about going into work, and the only jobs available are Amazon warehouse jobs or jobs in contact with the general public, like grocery store jobs or convenience store jobs, people don't want to do it. And it's not even that people don't want to work. They're just scared to work. So, and those jobs are not paying enough to argue for the risk premium. And so what's happening right now is there's sort of this like fight against whose responsibility it is to sort of deal with that risk premium for the workers. Meanwhile, there are 30 million people in the US, roughly 20% of the US is unemployed right now. And which, just to be clear, is way higher than a lot of other countries, largely because a lot of states had to shut back down. And so some states had reopened up, then they had massive spikes because this country's doing a terrible job of managing COVID-19. And because they had to lock back down, we're actually doing a lot worse off. So it's like super frustrating generally. And the really, really big problem is if this extra $600 a week expires, like it is going to screw people over. So it's not just we don't want people on minimum wage to like make more. Like I I don't feel the same way, but I sympathize with where that's coming from. Like, I have this Midwestern work ethic built into me, and I don't believe that people inherently don't want to work. I think people want work that they feel valuable in, but I do believe that people don't want to risk their lives and have to go back to work when there's no childcare available to work for a job that is less than they could make from not doing those things. And so the very frustrating thing is a lot of states' unemployment systems are set up to the point where there is no way in heck you can pay bills if you're making minimum wage and you're now making the minimum amount on unemployment, which in some states is as low as like $60 a week, and you cannot make that work. I guess shout out here to the fact that people that are on Social Security disability in this country are already expected to make it work on $800 a month. And I don't know by what miracle we think that this is a functional system. But, there's a lot of people that are living on disability in this country that are shouting, yes, we've been telling you all along it's impossible to make it work on this level of income. And only now that able-bodied people are afraid for their wellness of going into work that they think, oh. So, anyway, I'm very frustrated. Screaming at pillows. So, the big thing the Republicans want to do is they essentially want to say, we want to replace just a percentage of income. And usually unemployment replaces about 60% of your income. And that's just too low for people on the lower end of the spectrum. For a lot of Americans, too low anyway, because we're watching essentials like skyrocket as far as cost. So Joshua says, people on SSI live on less than $800. Yeah, it's like roughly around 800. It depends on your state and a bunch of other classification factors, but yes, it is around that much. And so the Republicans are trying to push forward like, oh, we do need to extend unemployment, like extra unemployment benefits, but we're going to set it at like 70% of what people are making before, or maybe up to 100% of what they were making before. But the issue is that, as we've talked about before, all these state systems are antiquated. And a lot of these systems were built in the 1980s. And they are having to deal with this, like, massive rush of applications. And some states have finally figured out how to get... I mean, Oregon is a great example. This is running out after originally being implemented in March. This pandemic unemployment assistance, and there are tons of people who have not seen a single check despite being qualified since March and been trying to apply, because Oregon has been doing a terrible job of managing unemployment. And there's a bunch of states got together and wrote a technical memo that essentially said, if you change it, if you make us verify what people made last year in order to set this by set this to be, 100% or 70%, it's going to take 8 to 20 weeks to implement this, because we don't have a way to verify how much people that are self-employed were making last year. We're going to have to reset our systems. These all are written in COBOL from 1987. And so they essentially wrote a technical memo. NPR got a hold of it. You can read it on the NPR website if you're interested. I pretty much just explained it in way more frustrated language. But if you kind of want to read it, it is very frustrating generally. So Kevin says broken by design in some cases, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I think that in Oregon, I don't think that the brokenness of the way that it's being distributed in Oregon is by design. And I would normally say, like, a great example is Social Security disability income in this country is broken by design, in my opinion. They really don't want you to claim it. They make it awful to get a hold of. The delays are outrageous. And in many states, like right-to-work states, the unemployment system is so hard to navigate, and there's such a large stigma as far as accessing it, and it's so difficult to get a hold of, and then it ends up being really small amounts and you still have to like file in this broken system every week, that yes, they are broken by design. I will say, in based on my conversations in Oregon and many other kind of states that are not right to work states. Right to work is a term in the US that is common in some states, but essentially they're mostly states that have banned unions. It's the rough way to say it. It sounds like a really fancy term, but they've mostly banned unions, roughly, except in limited cases. And right to work can make it very challenging to access public benefits if you are not actively working. And Latitude says, I think everyone is in right to work except Montana. Oregon is not a right to work state. So we're an at will state, but we're not right to work. Right to work it tends to be in red states. So yeah, at will and right to work are a little different, but not being able or willing to take high risk jobs because of my husband's health. I'm also at the zenith of my career, and so I'm overqualified for all jobs I've inquired about. Yeah, I mean, that's also one of the really frustrating things is that, like, when you're the way the unemployment system is set up in a lot of places is that you have to take a job if you've been offered it, but you also have to show that you're actively seeking work. And when there aren't jobs, like available in your industry, you end up with people either not wanting to apply to jobs that they'll never get. So like in order to show that they're like actively applying. And that's one of the things the CARES Act suspended, but every state kind of implemented differently. It essentially said, like, if you're open and willing to like go to work, you don't need to be dropping applications off, because they didn't want people like out dropping applications physically off and stuff like that. But yeah, that's one of the like really frustrating things. If you live on SSI, you probably need SNAP, energy assistance, and probably even Section 8, and you have trouble finding landlords who refuse to accept Section 8. Yeah, so Joshua, in Oregon a couple years ago, actually I guess it was like 5 or 6 years ago now, we made it so that landlords can no longer ban Section 8, and nor are they allowed to say no Section 8 on housing ads. And I actually like built a little script that would notify me every time someone posted on Craigslist saying no Section 8 allowed, and then I would it would like queue me up an email that would contain the statute and tell them that they couldn't advertise that anymore. But Section 8 discrimination still happens. The law didn't really change it in any way, shape, or form. And one of the problems we have here is that Section 8 vouchers are not indexed to the local market enough, when our local market was exploding for the past couple years. And so even if you do have Section 8, it often ends up not covering like the upper limit on Section 8 is too low to even be able to find a place. So yeah, very frustrating. But yes, if you live on SSI alone, you have to get other assistance. And depending on the type of it, like SSI versus SSDI, you're not able to have more than $2,000 in assets, except for some like key exceptions. But that means that you can never really effectively save up for anything. And they have to have these special kinds of accounts, which are called ABLE accounts, that allow you to save up for like equipment in order to be able to go back to work. That is adaptive equipment for people with disabilities. So yeah, it's just super frustrating. Yes, right to work does essentially kill the muscle of unions. Anyway, Christine, I sympathize. What about some level of guaranteed minimum income instead of all of this Michigas? Yes, wouldn't that be great? That's one of the things that like quite a few people have put forward those proposals, but considering we can't even get this extra $600 a week to be extended when it's like already been established and it's the closest thing to some kind of minimum income for at least people that qualify as unemployed. So what I'm very concerned about, so I am concerned about minimum wage workers that are having that disappear, and that was like it. Because I think people are going to go back to do risky jobs because they cannot live on unemployment alone. But what I'm extremely concerned about are the people that are in professions where they literally can't go back to work, like people that work in entertainment, dancers that work in clubs that are probably not till phase 4 in a lot of states. Like, you know, a lot of like bartenders and servers are just not going to have jobs come back. Certain tourism, hospitality, massage therapists, like great examples where like they're just, it's going to be quite a while before they can come back to work. And a lot of them are 1099 employees. And those folks in some states, the way it's set up is that they're going to be getting zero after next week. The only income they were getting was that extra $600 a week from pandemic unemployment assistance. And I'm just so frustrated about, yeah. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Anyone else? Sorry, I'm still reading the chat. There's a lot going on here. We're all just very frustrated, I think. Should I eat a donut now to cleanse the palate? So, everything's terrible. The title of this live stream was, Will the U.S. economy even recover? And in typical economist fashion, I can say, well, on the other hand, it might, but it might not. It will not recover in the format that we're used to. That's what I'm going to have to say. All right, let's eat this donut. Donut live stream time. Instead of just getting angry. So this is Sour Peach, and it tastes like Sour Patch Kids. And I'm pretty sure I forgot to bring a napkin in. It is very messy. Yeah, it's just as good as before. It pretty much tastes like Sour Patch Kids, but it tastes like a little less fake. You know how Sour Patch Kids has that, like, it's a candy. It's a candy made of magic. So, yeah. Yeah, Josh was saying the other problem was being 1099 on most campaign jobs, so I couldn't put enough back to qualify for SSDI. Yeah, that's one of the really frustrating parts about like being 1099 is that you're often not paying into the Social Security. Candy made of magic. It makes perfect sense. I don't know what you're talking about. It's just very artificial tasting, and this has real peach in it. I feel like I'm eating Princess Peach from the game. Like, it tastes like I'm eating Princess Peach from Mario Brothers. Latitude says, I briefly considered switching my major to accounting or economy. I think you mean economics, but you could just be economy because I enjoy Oh My Dollar so much, but you have to like take business classes, which I shall not do. I will say I went to a liberal arts school and taking economics meant no business classes. And because I went to a school that prided themselves on not teaching anything practical and everything was purely academic and theoretical, and I am so sad I didn't get to take a business class. There were none offered at my school. And so that was like very frustrating for me. The thing about business is like it is Sour Peach, Joe. It tastes like Sour Patch Kids, and that's pretty much it. So business, the thing about business is I don't think you have to think that taking a business class is going to destroy your hate of late stage capitalism. Like, you don't walk out of there a douche bro. And I think there's a lot of belief that taking business classes means that, like, you'll start thinking in, like, corporate mergers. But a lot of business classes, it really depends on the instructor, like any class, like who the professor is and kind of what the syllabus is. But a lot of business classes are just straight up, they're economics but useful. Like, it's like, hey, look into marginal cost. How many stickers should you buy for your cat sticker empire in order to make back the money? What, what is sunk cost? It helps, like, in its essence, business, like, decision-making is just figuring out how to make decisions with money involved. And it's a lot less theoretical than economics, at least the economics that I took. And I never got to take any, like, supply chain economics or anything because that was far too practical for my school. Which meant that like I am so good at discussing macroeconomic theory, and I can write extremely long chalkboard econometric equations and link them back to the original sources. But if you ask me to like, determine like, the best product mapping for a shelf based on some algorithm, I just never learned how to do that. So, yeah. Latitude says, oh no, I can't become an economics major. I am a Libra. I don't know enough about astrology, so you're going to have to explain to me why Libras can't. Yeah, this is really good. Latitude says, if you're a non-traditional student, it's very easy to get FAFSA Pell Grant money if you haven't used all of it, which is 12 semesters of Pell Grant. I think we've talked about this in the forums, but that's actually what I did. The big reason I went to a private, like, liberal arts school, like, elite school or whatever, was actually because while I qualified for, like, Pell Grant and aid and stuff, they actually had a lot of institutional aid. So even though the sticker price was extremely high, it's like a $40,000, $50,000 a year school, the amount I paid out of pocket was, like, $2,000 a year. And that was because it was, because they essentially would agree to meet your need. And because I was an independent student, my income was quite low. So that was why I ended up doing it. I also did AmeriCorps, so I got those, but. Yep. Oh, no. Oh, Latitude. You'd be a perfect economics major. So Libras are indecisive. They can see all sides of an argument. Sounds like a Hufflepuff. So economics is all about making decisions, but you're not getting anything done. I've said this quote before, but President Truman said, I really need to find a one-armed economist because economists always say, on the other hand. So economics is not about making decisions. Business is about making decisions. Economics is about seeing all sides of the argument and being able to argue all sides. Literally, several of my classes were being assigned the same data set by two different teams, and then having to run a bunch of regressions, build models for it in order to argue both sides of it. So using data to lie with statistics is pretty much what I got my degree in. And my ability to see both sides of an argument, I largely attribute to economics. Also, I'm a Hufflepuff. So are Libras Hufflepuffs? Can you be a Slytherin Libra? If we're, like, describing random things. Can I have a napkin? It's really bad up in here. Libras are an air sign. They are Ravenclaws. I like that we're getting to the bottom of this important question of what astrological signs. I'm a Libra and a Hufflepuff. It checks out. I'm sorry, Ash. We have a lot to arrange, and napkins, it happens about 50% of the time. I love how I know I'm eating a donut every time, but like the napkins are in a different part of the house. I don't know. So I'm a Cancer, which is apparently extremely inaccurate for me. So yeah, we're like very nostalgic and emotional and not things that I am. So one thing I am always surprised about, because of course I live in Portland and date women, so everybody is very into astrology and I've just had to tolerate it. And I once was like required to give up my birth chart in order to rent a house in Eugene, Oregon. So that was great. Like, what time were you born? Anyway, what I'm always surprised about is they'll find out I'm a Cancer and then be like, that doesn't make sense. And then they'll try to figure out why. Like, oh, but if you have this in your 8th house and it attended Hogwarts between the ages of 13 and 15, then that's why you're not a typical Cancer or something like that. So I think being Libra Virgo would probably make me a great economist, but instead I'm an editor. I mean, I don't know if we really need more economists in the world. So, hey, if you want to be an economist and an editor, you can run away to London and get a master's degree in financial journalism, like I'm doing. I'm not. I'm confidently stating I'm doing this thing. I have, one, not gotten into the graduate program. Two, have not in any way planned my life to be able to move to London. I'm just starting to, like, state it into existence. I haven't even decided if it's a good idea yet. So. This is very confusing. Apparently I need to find out what my rising and moon signs are. I don't know. It sounds very hard. I have the same birthday as Michelle Kwan. That's the only important part. Claire isn't running away to London. I don't know why. Amanda said, did you decide whether to apply to the London program? I can't remember. Yeah, it's kind of a bit more complicated than that because I'm now applying for citizenship in the EU. And just to introduce like more complicated factors. So I'm trying to get my Croatian passport, and that when that actually comes through kind of influences immigration status between Brexit and COVID, and then that influences home fee status. So the answer is I have no idea. I don't know why you're not running away, Claire. I mean, hey, raising a 2-year-old in London sounds excellent. I'm kidding. There's not a lot of space there. Don't do that. But they are portable. I actually know several friends that have moved from one country to the other at 2. I don't know anybody who's moved with a 2-year-old, but I know several people who were moved as a 2-year-old between the UK and the US. So, not that I don't think anybody really wants to move to England right now with the mess that it is with Brexit, but how much are people interested in the Jenga that is all of these deadlines and stuff? Because I can explain it if it's interesting, but between the passport and Brexit and grad school and COVID, it's like, I feel like I need to make some sort of graphic to represent all the things and like how they're interlocking. But yeah. Yeah, that was one of the key issues, is if you move over there right when they're like forming all their speech patterns, then they can end up with like a very cool accent. Yes, Latitude, your life might be a Jenga of deadlines, but is it a Jenga of deadlines influenced by negotiations between the European Union and the British government? And is it quite a few deadlines that you need someone to translate from Croatian for you? So the like frustrating part about like what's happening right now is that I am applying for this passport, not really sure how long it's going to take, officially hiring an immigration lawyer to do it. It's getting real now. And if I get that passport, I will be EU. And EU only through mid next year still qualifies for all of the like settled status in the UK that they previously had when the UK was part of Brexit. They're not part of the EU before Brexit. The UK hasn't like officially left yet, and they're still like working on a bunch of things. So it wasn't until June 23rd that they even worked out what is happening with EU students in the UK. So the big reason why it's very advantageous to go on my EU passport is that as an American, I actually have to like apply for the special visa status. I have to pay to use the NHS. Like I have to pay an international surcharge each year, which is still like, as an American, it's like nothing to pay, $300 to access healthcare free at the point of service for an entire year. But a lot of other countries are offended by that, because that's not the point of the NHS, is that it's supposed to be free at the point of service and paid for via your taxes. Anyway, but I also would pay half as much tuition, and I would have freedom to work. So one of the really frustrating things about the Tier 4 student visa, which is the international student visa for the UK, is You can only work up to 20 hours a week, which is fine. I'll be in grad school. I probably won't want to work that much, but you can't be self-employed. So I would have to figure out some sort of situation with Oh My Dollar where I'm up and legal and I'm not getting in trouble with the Home Office of the UK so that I can keep operating it. But any kind of work that is self-employed, you're not allowed to do under a Tier 4 visa, which is similar to the visas here in the US for international students. So if I go on the EU passport, that all kind of disappears. But now, because of Brexit, there is these like cascading set of deadlines, which is that you can be considered pre-settled in the UK if you arrive before December 31st of this year. And then you have until June to apply for pre-settled status, which means that you get 5 years, and then you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, which is the equivalent of a green card here in the US. You don't have to pay for NHS. You don't have to worry about any of these restrictions. You have freedom of movement just the same as you currently do as an EU citizen in the UK. If you arrive after that, you no longer have the freedom of movement. However, if you start on a course before July 31st next year, then you are locked in with home fee status, meaning you pay the same as UK residents for your course until the end of your course. So you would have a different immigration status, but you would have a like kind of slightly more frustrating. You would pay less for your actual course, but you'd still have to be on the Tier 4 student visa. So yeah. Oh, are you trying to remind me that I'm tired and should wrap up soon because I don't have any idea what I'm saying anymore? Anyway, it's all just very frustrating. And then meanwhile, like, Aaron's building a house and our lease is up in January of this year. And also I have a job. So it's all very complicated. And as an economist, I can tell you all about the opportunity cost and everything. So, as the parent of a 3-year-old, I do agree portable does not mean it was a good idea to move them. Yes, that seems fair. Oh My Pound. Yes, we did like a special edition Oh My Dollar that was like about Brexit when I was living in London in August, but I would love to do like a more in-depth kind of series, but yeah. Anyway, it's all very frustrating. My kiddo does speak pretty cute already. Other accents are always more interesting. I mean, the Australian accent is adorable. I like the Western Australian accent to my untrained American ear. I think I liked it, and then I liked the kind of Sydney accent, but I know Sydney is like made up of people from all over the rest of Australia, so I don't know if that accent is very specific. Oomp. Sounds like one has been whomped with a pillow. Yes, I like that. So that's the cascading series. I think that's all the... Oh, and then to add on, most of the courses don't start till September. So I would have to figure out if I could enroll in a short course, like at the university. And then there's this whole COVID thing, which is like, would I even be allowed to go to the UK? Because at this rate, no one is letting us in or wants us. Coming from America. So there's a possibility the only way I could get out would be to try to catch a repatriation flight to Croatia and then fly from Croatia to the UK. I mean, who knows? So, Latitude says, what if they're going to do online only courses? Yeah. I mean, this would be September of next year, and it seems like most of the universities are in the UK are planning, if they are doing online only, they're only going online only until like next semester. But as we've discovered, is like universities are making this up as they go along and they really have no idea. I will say they seem to have the case numbers like way more under control than the US. So I wouldn't have really any interest in doing the course that I'm doing online. And the big reason is the whole reason to do it is access to the studios and BBC work experience and living in London. And while the information is great, it has a lot more to do with the like practical and the networking and everything. And so I wouldn't be interested in paying for it for the knowledge. So, yeah. I'm also less tired now, Joe. It turns out talking for an hour is, yeah, and eating a donut. Donut review is the donut's great. Okay, everybody tell me what the most exciting thing they're doing this week is, and then we will wrap and go. Is she on the thing? We got the cat we didn't get her it. We found in the trash room of our building a new cat tower. And it's a very cool looking cat tower. And so we like sprayed it down with the enzymes that like clean it, but also like remove cat smells, and washed the pads that came on it because they're like all removable. It's not carpeted or anything. And we are like hoping she likes it, but also we acquired it because it was in the trash room and it was such good quality without really an actual plan of where to put it. And we don't live in a super small apartment, but we don't live in a super big apartment. And we don't really have a good plan for it. So, Alyssa is celebrating your 10-year marriage anniversary. That's great. Congrats. That's pretty rad. Are you doing anything exciting? Or are you just gonna like be in your house next to each other like everybody is right now? Latitude has finals the end of this week, so end of semester. Ooh, I hope the finals end up being a highlight of the week in some way, and then your cake that you're gonna get for the end of semester. Your mother-in-law is coming to visit. I like how it's not that you're excited about it, but that your 2-year-old is looking forward to it, which is fair. Visiting the redwoods in the fog. That sounds very exciting. Emily says, shout out to the Nature's Miracle. I think the stuff we use is actually called Back Out, not Nature's Miracle. Anyway, the cat got on it. She doesn't seem totally sold yet. But she'd get in a little box. I wanted to ask you if you've ever tried Miyoko's mozzarella on pizza or nachos. Does it melt well? I have some and it's fabulous, but I don't want to waste it if it doesn't melt well. Is it the shredded Miyoko's? I think I have tried it, and I was of the opinion that it was too expensive and fancy to use melted on nachos. That was my recollection. Miyoko's is very good, but it's so expensive. Like, savor it and use it in ways that it can't be replaced with easier things. It's round. I have not tried that on a pizza, definitely for sure, but I would not. Yeah, Miyoko's is too nice. I think just eat it. Maybe you could try like a tiny one. Did you put the cat tower up? Oh, nice. Isn't it cool? It's kind of cool. It doesn't actually fit the aesthetic of our apartment in any way, but, you know, whatevs. I love that velvet chair. It is a great velvet chair. It was acquired for $5 at the Goodwill Ben's. And yes, it is a great chair. Someone was like, oh, you shouldn't put that next to the cat tower because she might scratch it. And I was like, it is a cat tower. It is already a cat tower. She doesn't actually like actively scratch it, but she does do a lot of flips and jumps off the back of it. So people seem to really like it. She did, when she was a kitten, she tore the bottom open and like made a nest hammock from underneath. And I've never actually fixed it, but the big problem is that it never really quite gets clean of cat hair, no matter how much I try. So, hoping to not die of heat exhaustion is a good goal, Daniel. Ooh, Kevin is hiking in Chautauqua Park in Boulder. That sounds amazing. It sounds like everybody's doing very active things. Except Joe, who is going to be napping all week. That sounds good. You have a lot going on right now, Joe. I hope you much napping and very little nausea. And pulling some carrots from the vegetable patch sounds nice and low-key. Okay, well, thank you all for the compliments of the chair, and thank you for spending a little time with me on the live stream tonight and letting me have almost no topic except a rant about unemployment in the US, and letting me eat a donut I've eaten before. And I appreciate you all. Please take care of yourself this week. Hopefully, don't let the economy collapsing stress you out too much. Focus on just taking care of you and yours. And drink some water. Stay hydrated. Wear a mask when you go outside. And be safe. And I will see you same time, same place next week.